Hey guys, new video here. As you can see, I just dinged 100 yesterday, day before, on my Inquisitor, so second level 100 Whale Sparker. I'm gonna run a quick map. This should be like no different than what you saw on the Pathfinder here. So I'm just gonna run a quick map. This is a Beyond map. Yeah, I don't even like pick up that much stuff, so I can just show you focus more on the gameplay aspect of it. Why is that minimap so big? So as you can see, it is pretty much the same. If you pay close attention to the bottom right of the screen, you're going to see something significantly different than the Pathfinder. We'll go over like all the differences, what I think, what do I think is better, oh, I'm sustaining, and like, the main difference is like, which one should I pick? Because a lot of time when right now I'm not streaming, but when I'm sharing, a lot of people are like, hey, well, what's the final conclusion? Well, which one is better, Pathfinder or Inquisitor? And overall, I'll just say it like this: Pathfinder probably will feel better for the vast majority of people, but Inquisitor is like when you talk about speed, right? Like when you talk about how fast something is, I think there's like two ways to look at it. And the first way is how fast does it move around the map? Like how fast can it clear a map? Not 20%. And then the second thing is like another type of speed is like how fast. I was just double sustaining. And another thing is that's a host right there. And the other thing is how fast can I get to like 100, right? Like how fast is it for leveling, gaining XP, and stuff like that. So that's another thing we'll talk about. And I think Inquisitor is better for the latter. The time spent to get this guy to level. To get this guy to level 100 was much less than the Pathfinder, and that was for a few reasons as well, and that is I didn't die as much. So just to give you an example, from level 98 to 99 on my Pathfinder, I died 8 times. So I lost an actual 80% full XP. I counted like how much XP I actually lost. So like if I died at like 0, then it wouldn't matter, right? Because you don't lose XP. But I lost 80% XP at level 98 to 99 on the Pathfinder. On this guy, I lost 50% XP, so I died 5 times at 98 to 99, right? And also a thing to note is on this guy, I was running much more dangerous maps than the Pathfinder. So that is another thing to note. And then let's think about level 99. So at level 99, it was pretty crazy. If you watch the stream, the Pathfinder died 11 times, so 110% XP, like actual XP loss. So I basically did 99 to 100 twice and then an extra 10%. So that kind of sucked. And I didn't even turn on my soft murmur. Now, how many times does this guy die? This guy died twice. But it's important to note that the deaths were kind of like BS on this. The first death, I died at 10% on this guy, and it was like this like really laggy volatile. Like I was like full blown in like sprint mode, and it like came up and killed me. So I don't know if that's like, I mean, this is just like a predictive thing, right? If you're running on predictive, it's always going to be a little bit iffy. And the second death, I was like reading chat. We had just been talking about the Diablo 3 mobile announcement and the drama and stuff. And we were just having a good time. And I was answering a question in chat. I wasn't even looking, and I just walked into a set of bears. So really, the Templar is much safer. If you're looking for the more defensive option, Templar is really good. And here's what I did with the Templar. Okay. And I'll have like maybe the path of building below and everything, but right here, this is an interesting choice. I took Sanctify, and you might wonder like, why are you doing Sanctify instead of Instruments? Well, Instruments, you're gonna get the spell damage all the time because you're always casting Spark, Whale Spark, and so you get 30% damage there. But it's a Queen of the Forest build, you see? Queen of the Forest means you run around, like if I hit my 3 flats here, just running around real fast, amazing, right? And so I don't ever attack. I don't even have an attack on here unless I do an auto attack. So this doesn't give me as much benefit, right? The 30% when it's an increased modifier, it does almost nothing for the build. Whereas this, I mean, this also isn't like that great, but like, I mean, you get like a little bit of LE damage, a little bit of life regen, which is not bad. And then this one, you get the life regen, but you also get, like, if you're standing on the ground, 40% increased damage, so not as reliable as it's 30%, but it is something. So that's not bad. And it's like, it was either between this, and this one just won out. And the other thing is Righteous Providence. So basically, this is just a buff to crit. It is a buff to crit multi if something takes more than let's say 2 hits to kill. And then increased effect of non-damage ailments. So like shock, shock, burns, stuff like that, right? Chills. Now, I was using Herald of Ash for a while, so like that actually helped a little bit, but it's whatever. So Righteous Providence, this is like no-brainer here, right? Big damage node here. The little nodes are also big damage nodes too, but then this one right here. So basically how this works, and everyone has to know this by now, but I'll just go over it again. So if you don't crit, which is in my calculation, about 10% of the time you don't crit on your Will Spark, so it's really low. But when you don't, you get 10% penetration, and when you do, it ignores the elemental resistance. That means that the things that you're hitting are 0 when you crit, right? 0 resist. It doesn't matter if they have negative. So let's say you have an Aura bot that has LE weakness and what is it, conductivity, right? And you're all lightning for some reason, and let's say it brings their lightning rest down like -80 something, right? Probably way more than that because of that curse resistance, but whatever. You don't actually do that much more damage. Even if they have -90 resist, with this, when you crit, it's 0. So what is this good for? Well, it's good for bosses, right? Because you are going to one-shot the white monsters, the blue monsters, the yellow monsters. You're going to one-shot them no matter what. So if a boss has resist, then this helps a lot because you're always critting, and then you ignore their resist, and then because they have naturally higher life pool. And then another thing it helps with is if you're doing, let's say you're doing some maps, right? And you have like you have a map where like 40% monster resist, right? Usually like most monsters don't have that much resist, but let's say you have something like this, and you don't have like a you're on something that like doesn't have a way to reduce the resist. Well, then you're gonna feel that 40% resist. You partner the 40% resist with a map roll that's let's say, I don't know, more monster life, and then you're really gonna be feeling it. Man, this build sucks, right? Let's say you don't have a warding flash or something, you get an enfeeble on that map. Enfeeble, more monster life, ally resist, then you're gonna be like, man, my build is such garbage. You don't have to worry about any of that with the Inquisitor, which makes it like a really nice, like solid class. Obviously, Inquisitor has fallen out of favor a little bit in the meta with like things like Elementals, Pathfinder stuff, all the cool new flashy builds, even Jug these days. So like this doesn't get talked about too much anymore because everyone usually either knows it or they're like kind of tired of playing this. But this is like this like might be like one of the best 4-pointers in the game. And then the Augury of Penitence. So this actually helps the Whale Spark too because you don't have any like taken modifiers. Like how like you use like Tomb Fist or something, and you attack an enemy and they get like more damage taken, and there's like other ways to do that too, to intimidate enemies. But like on spellcaster, it's hard to do that. So when you have a node like this, the first part, taking 16% increased, that doesn't mean it's like the same as where's like Light of Divinity at? You see this? You see how this says like 14% increased damage right here? Oh no, that's Retribution. Where is it? Yeah, here we go. Like Light of Divinity, 15%. That's like as close as I could get, right? 15% increased spell damage. Like that's just an increased modifier. That's not that much, but when you have something that says taken, that's a more modifier. If you don't, it's 1-to-1 more modifier if you don't have any other taken sources. So this basically means they take 16% more damage, okay? And then once again, if you're critting, it's like pure damage, so it's crazy. And then the second part is equally as good. So what this translates into is if your resists are at 75, which they should be, and you don't have any resistance flasks, right? Your resist flasks, when you hit all your flasks, they're not like a Dying Sun, Taste of Hate, all these things, Vingtar, whatever, that increase your max res. Basically, this translates to 2% max resist, which is really strong, okay? And so that, like, a lot of times you go down to like low life and stuff, and that extra 2% max res will save your life. So this is an extremely strong node. You pair this along with things like if I were going to do this again, I would get like, you don't really need the damage. So what if you got a +1 max res chest and a +1 max res amulet? Oh my gosh, 2 more max res. Now, then it'll work differently because 8% reduced taken when you have 77% max res is different when you have 75%. But we won't talk about the math there. Just know that like max res is so powerful. So that's what makes it the defensive, like this, it makes it a really strong defensive, right? Taking less elemental damage. So, might save you from a volatile, a lightning boy. So let's talk about the scary stuff for this build. So what will kill you? Obviously, if you're like an idiot like me and you walk into bears, or like the predictive, you're like you can't control your character. And then see, I have logout macro right now, right, where I can just hit this now because it was so annoying to desync into bears, into volatiles. So I would say that the volatiles, the bears, and the lightning boys, the mirages, right? Mirages are extremely hard to see. People told me there's a sound effect, but I mean, I have like music on and stuff. I'm like looking at chat and stuff, so it was harder for me. So those are the dangerous things, and it is much easier to survive that as a Templar. Other things like the Beyond monsters. Here's what I'll say when you're doing Beyond maps, okay? With Whale Spark, once you have your momentum, meaning your flats are up, your buffs are up, you're gonna destroy the Beyond bosses that spawn. Setiash, when he channels his Flame Blast, he has to stand still. So he's a stationary target, and he can't like attack you with his sword or anything when he's standing still. So he won't do anything. The cold guy Haas is actually kind of scary, but once again, you just get right up to him, right? Glacial Cascade and the second form Ice Spear can do some damage to his right map mods, but he's not that bad either. You just get right up to him and kill him. The Behemoth isn't really scary at all. Effiage, when he in the time he lays down his Stormcall markers, he's probably dead already, and then they disappear, right? They don't persist after death, just like the Flame Blast will not persist after death for Setiash. So don't worry about that. And then Abixoth obviously is a little bit scary, but once again, just get your momentum. If you don't have the momentum, don't fight the Beyond bosses. That's how I handled level 100, and it didn't really it wasn't even that many times I had to not fight bosses. Maybe a handful of times. You count it on one hand how many times you had to leave the map just because you didn't have momentum, right? And momentum once again is headhunter buffs, all your flasks up, and things like that, right? And of course, rampage stacks. Okay, so that's a Templar right there. So what else will I say about the Templar? Templar is noticeably slower. When you're running around, just without there's two types of headhunter movement speed buffs you can steal. When you don't have those, okay, and when you're not fully juiced, the Templar does feel slower. I will say that it is noticeable. And I should have done this. Hold on. Okay. And so overall, you will be slower. Now, when you steal all the buffs, the Templar, you don't notice the speed, right? Because I don't have any charges, but you won't notice the speed when you have all your buffs up. So at the top end, if you're going fast, it doesn't matter as much, but just know you'll feel slower on the bottom end when you don't have the right buffs. Another thing about the Templar is in terms of tankiness, I think I have more HP, but that's probably because I crafted this helmet. So yeah, this is a skill tree. I just took this with my level 100. Don't take this. It's kind of dumb. But this is the skill tree. Once again, I'll post this. You don't even need this one right here. You can put it into wherever else you want. But I'll post this skill tree into the information below after this video. And another thing I'll say is just some quick tips that I've answering questions over and over again. Something that people do wrong is make sure that you have these hazardous research. Make sure that you have these at 20%, okay? It's very important to have these at 20% because it'll reduce your soul gain prevention. The lightning roll does not matter, okay? The reason I got Corrupting Blood here is because I don't have a Staunching Flask, and Corrupting Blood kills you, regular bleeds don't really kill you. So make sure these are 20%, it's very important. And try to get your Soul Catcher to 40% as well. Now so I switched up a bunch of stuff on the build, right? So let's go over that. The final verdict on what felt the best for me, and I did try out a lot of stuff, right? And for me, the big change from the last video you saw are for the helm, right? Obviously, this nearby enemies has -9 lightning res. This doesn't matter for Inquisitor because once again, the enemy's resist is 0. But if I were to do this again on any other build, Pathfinder, a Deadeye, that doesn't matter. Get this helmet. And what I mean by that is you get a evasion helmet, so it's easier to get 45,000 evasion for max speed between the force if you can. Spark proj speed is very important. Here, I'll just show you, okay? You see this spark speed, and this is still kind of slow. Let's say you take it off. Look at that. You see that? it feels bad, right? So you want that speed, right? That speed is like, you know, it's like coverage, it's like coming back, more chance of it like rearming and coming back, hitting the mob. So you definitely want spark speed, projectile speed. There's no replacement for that. If you are a Pathfinder, Pathfinder is really nice because there's this node right here. You see this? This is 20% prog speed as well. That's sick. So you get that as Pathfinder, which is why I think most people will start easier with Pathfinder. In terms of so I crafted this myself, right? It's going to be a pristine and a metallic. Pristine and metallic should be able to net you a -9 and a big life helmet. If you're really lucky, you'll get 100 plus life, and you'll even get a 3% max life roll, which I didn't get, but I just ran out of fossils. Because if you see here, I used a hollow fossil to craft this socket, so I have a little bit of life here. So it's like, you know, it's whatever. You use the pristine and metallics, you'll get yourself, I'd say it takes less than 1 or 2 exalts in terms of buying the fossils to get like a really nice roll. Okay, if you've seen my crafting of the Molten Strike helmets, of the CP helmets, you know that I've done, you know, multiple, and those were selling for like 8-9 exalts each, but like it only took me 1 or 2 exalts to craft, and so it's very reliable. It's not something where like, oh, I should just buy it because it's cheaper. No, it's like you can craft it. If you want to spend the time to get the fossils and the Rosanders, you're gonna be all right. So this is a big change here. So I would say that this is best in slot. -9 to lightning res, and life, a max life roll, and then you know, evasion base. As you can see, this has more evasion than a Debotos. Now if you really want a 20% movement speed and the evasion, you can get a Debotos, but I don't recommend it. I think this is much safer because it's so much life. So this is, in my opinion, the best in slot, with a far in second place Debotos Devotion for 20% move speed, evasion, and of course you have to have the spark projectile speed enchant. And then in like way last place, but if you somehow have one and you don't want to do with other things, you can do a 2-socket light poacher great crown with the spark speed, once again, spark speed, projectile speed, and then get 2 fatty life abyssal jewels in there. Okay, but this is by far the best. Chest, Queen of the Forest, nothing to see here. You want to try to get the best rolls, but the most important thing is you get either +2 projectile gems, +2 duration gems. If you somehow can't get a 4 off color, and you have 3 off, well, 4 off color as in 1 red, you can even put an empower in here, and then a +1 to max gems would essentially be the same thing. But this gem setup I've found to be the best, and this has changed from the last video. So we have Pierce and Faster Barrage, those are mandatory. You have I think Controlled Destruction, Increased Crit, and Spark, those are really good. And this last one, Increased Critical Damages, it's kind of a weird one, right? Because when you don't crit, you have a 5 link, but because you're critting 9% of the time with your flash up, this is really good. Now if you can't get this, or you have a red socket, then you can put in an empower, or like, let's say you have a green socket or something, I don't know, put in like like added cold or something. I really don't know, but yeah, this is like the for me, this has been the best in slot. It's felt awesome, and once again, the +2 is really good on the chest. If you can't get that, the +2 at the time of this recording, if you're going to do it yourself, it's only a couple exalts. If it's unlinked, right, and you have Reach 8, only a couple exalts. I'm not even kidding you. There's so many. Look, I'll just show you. I have plenty of them myself. I have well, there's a +1 here. I have a +2 here. I have a +2. Well, that's a +2 trap mine gem. And I have a clean one here, and then a +2 AOE gems here. Like, these are really easy to buy for a couple exalts. If they are not linked, you can link it yourself. If you calculate the 1500 whales and the 1500 fusings, and they are less than an already 6 linked, then you do it yourself. If it's more than the already 6 links, you just buy it for the exalts. You see how that works? Okay, so that's the chest. That's what I've changed here. The weapons have not actually changed. Now, I have some weapons that have penetration, and I think that if you're playing a Pathfinder or any other non-Inquisitor, try to get a penetration. 10% is the max roll, I believe. Let's see. Yeah. Damage penetrates 10% of lightning res, right? Now, obviously, with a Call of the Brotherhood, you're like sharing it with lightning and cold, but still a big amount of damage. So I would say the mandatory rolls on this is 20% reduced soul cost, right? Get it on 2 weapons, and then after that, it's going to be a crit base, right? Because you want to crit as much as possible. A crit roll, so crit chance for spells on there, and then well, that's kind of shared with 10% pen. 10% pen is like so strong. So Try to get those rolls. It's gonna be a little bit expensive. The added damage is actually not that important. I mean, this crit multi is nice and everything, but I exalted that on there. The added to spells, and same with the abyssal jewels, is not that important. And why is that? Well, that's because if you look at the gem right here, you see the effectiveness. So regular spark has 100% effectiveness, but now look at the whale spark, which is like really the only thing you're gonna be casting most of the time, and that is 40%. That means if I add 100 lightning damage, I only get 40 lightning damage added to the whale spark, which is not bad, because as a percentage, 40 damage is almost 10% of this lightning damage. You see how the base damage of the whale spark is so low. It's kind of garbage, which is why you want to boost it with the chest enchant. But so yeah, so don't worry too much about the added damage. But if you can get it, I mean, there's like plenty of budgeting on these prefixes, suffixes on the dagers. So why not if you can get it, right? And then same thing here, right? So once again, I would say for Inquisitor, you need 2 of these reduction, because if you don't have the three stacks, because Inquisitor only gets 3 max stacks, Pathfinder gets 5, and that's another thing to talk about. When you have 5 stacks and the 0% soul gain prevention, the Pathfinder is so much easier to play. When you're like mass casting your whale spark all around, when you're like, for me, my whale spark is on E, right? This is the button I push, even though it's here. The reason I have it so many times here is because in my peripheral vision, it's easier to see when 4 things rotate around and give me another stack, and then I can just press it. But on Pathfinder, you can literally hold this button down. In Inquisitor, you cannot hold the button down, because I'm going to press my second flask and watch this. You see the soul gain prevention 0.42, and it's also the cast time without the buffs. So what does that mean? That means as you cast, the enemies close to you, because it'll hit the enemy in less than 0.42 seconds, those will not grant you souls, and that's a huge problem. And so you have to kind of stutter. You got to cast, let it go out, kill enemies, cast it again intermittently a little bit. So the management's a little bit different on Templar, a little bit more annoying, but overall not that bad once you get used to it. So that was a big issue. Now you might be wondering, like, how can I get my let me hit it again, how can I get my thing to 0? Well, you can use a less duration if you want, and you can use like some kind of jewelry or whatever to do it, but I wouldn't recommend that. And why is that? Because look at the duration here. Spell duration is 1.2. I cast it, wait, that's not it. Where's my spark? I cast it. Okay, you see how long the spider's on the ground? Respectable amount of time, right? That's pretty good. And the radius is essentially massive, right? My AoE is massive. Now, if I were to put a less duration or use any less duration items, like jewelries, this becomes like 0.5, 0.6, like whatever. It's so bad. And I wish I had a red socket just so I could show you, but your radius is now like this. It's like this. You see my mouse? It's so small, and so your AoE is gimped, and it's horrible. So you don't want to do that, okay? So you want to just sit with like the low. Hold on, it's out of juice. You want to sit with just like the 0.42. That's fine, and that's why, like, once again, 20% reduction here and here, so important, okay? On the hazardous researches. Now. Another thing is that when, so for Pathfinder, because Pathfinder has a true 0% soul gain prevention, no matter how much you're holding down, like if I just hold down the whale spark, pretend that these are whale sparks, right? If I hold it down, you can never get prevented from gaining those souls. The moment you press that whale spark, you are able to gain the souls from the kills back. So it's much more convenient. In delves, holding down 5 stacks is much more convenient, because, like, let's say you accidentally use like 2 stacks or something. Well, like, whoop-de-doo, I have 3 stacks left. On Templar, it's a little bit more annoying. I found myself doing Underground Seas. I found myself having to reset, especially on cannot regen maps, going back to town, going back in, because it's like, oh, I don't have the juice anymore, right? I ran out of stacks. And although it doesn't happen that much, it was quite noticeable compared to Pathfinder. So that's one more annoyance. So I guess like the whole theme of this so far that I've been talking about, if I just sum it up, is like Inquisitor is a little bit more management and a little bit more annoyance, and not as carefree, but much safer. Easier road to 100 by far. Bigger burst damage as well. Like, per whale spark cast, the Inquisitor does more damage. But once again, why do you need more damage when your Pathfinder has 5 stacks, right? And you can't lose like the soul gain. So So that's another thing to consider. Okay, let's go over the rest of the gear. I went on a little bit of tangent there. So we went over this and this. Let's go, and the weapons. So let's go over the jewelry. Now, why do you use a Call of the Brotherhood? Well, Call of the Brotherhood, if you take it off, put it on. I've tested out with both. It is much easier to shatter with Call of the Brotherhood because although I'm using Herald of Ice, which adds ice damage, sometimes it's not enough. And so Call of the Brotherhood makes sure that if you crit an enemy, pretty much it's going to shatter. And why is that important? Well, shatter prevents detonate dead from affecting you. It prevents some of the crystal spiders or like the little like Rita, whatever the exploding mobs are in the delves from being able to explode. So that's really good. So this is just a safe bet. It has all res, it has lightning damage on it. The matter gen doesn't really matter, and then the conversion is super strong, right? So this is just I would say this is mandatory in the one of the ring slots. Okay, you can't really change this out for anything. Now, what about the second ring? Now this one is pretty nice. So if you get a ring, you obviously want to shore up your resist, make sure you have 75 resist, and you want a life roll. But then after that, what should you get? Opal rings are great because you can get like 50 plus alley damage, but once again, you don't need that much damage on this build. And so what I went for is I went for a ring that shored up my resist, and it gave me life gained on hit by spells. 12 is the max of that roll, right? So and that's important because your sparks, there's a lot of sparks, there's a lot of hits, and so you gain your life back a little bit faster. Think of it as like a little bit of regen, and there's a lot of times when like you kind of wish that you had a little bit extra regen. It's a little bit protective later. Now if you're not going to do this, then just go ahead and get a opal ring, right? 25% implicit, and a 20 go for 25% plus lightning damage roll, because conversion, even though you're converting to cold, whatever affects the starter element will affect the next one, right? You don't lose the damage if you convert. So get one of those rings. But I would say if you're looking for safety and a little bit extra, and you think your damage is okay, try to get a life gained for each enemy hit by spells. But double damage opal ring is totally fine. Maybe you get triple damage opal ring. Jesus Christ. Okay. Amulet. Ooh, big things to talk about here. So I have found the best in slot to be a Victario's Acuity after much testing. The other guy's using like in Presence or something. Now, why is the Victario's Acuity so good? Well, let me tell you why. So with this, you have negated a map roll. You can now do hexproof with no worry, right? Because like before, if you were using let's say that the Assassin Mark was actually used for generating power charges, and you go into a hexproof map, doesn't work anymore. Sorry. But with this, you get your frenzies, you get without having to use a Green Nightmare, or for God forbid, Blood Rage, and you get your power charges always full all the time. And don't worry about the map mods. So that's amazing. That's just like peace of mind right there. Saves you a jewel socket in the Green Nightmare case, right? So that's really sick. Projectile speed for frenzy. I think I have like 3 or 4 frenzies. So like that's 15 to 20% frenzy or 15 to 20% projectile speed. Once again, I've shown you how important projectile speed is. So that's amazing. And then proj damage per power charge, I have 4, so 20% proj damage. It's okay, it's something. And then Chow's resist and lightning res. So obviously shoring up your resist a little bit there, and that's really good. You do not need this apply additional curse. The reason I have this apply additional curse is because these Tomb Fists have temp chains on hit, and then in the Herald of Ice they have Assassin's Mark, so that's like possibly 2. But actually thinking again, I would actually go for a normie, like just a clean Victario's, or a +1 max res Victario's, which I also tested out earlier. I had it for a while, and so what happens is you just have like maybe your Assassin's Mark, because it's a good curse, and then what you do is you get a cheap Shadows and Dust that has base crit for spells implicit, right? Really cheap. Well, not maybe really cheap, a couple exalts here and there. So you get a base crit for spells, which once again ups your chance to crit. Every time, once again, with this ascendancy, every time you don't crit, you feel bad. Well, not really that bad, but not like before, right? So yeah, so you want to get like that. Shadows and Dust. Okay, now so Victario's Acuity is for me, it is the best amulet for this build with the Queen of the Forest playstyle, with like the speed mapping playstyle that I found. Close seconds are, you can get a let's say not Inquisitor once again, you can get it in presence conductivity, like you get a free blasphemy conductivity and weaken the enemies. Like that's awesome, right? And then like that plus this -9 on the helm, oh my god, they're gonna have like negative 50 negative 50 lightning res. That's crazy. So you can go within presence. Presence is really good. I mean, and that's a close second. So, but I would really recommend you use the Victarios, man, because anyone who's played knows how annoying hexproof is. Okay, so get the Victarios. It's so beneficial for this build. You just lose a little bit of life, but whatever. Okay. And so now gloves, I think I talked about this on the last video, but I'll go over it again. Make sure that you get Shadows and Dust. Okay, it is so good. Crit multi. I mean, no life, but Rampage, for those of you that don't know, Rampage stacks up to 1,000, and it's like the timer in the top left corner that counts down. You get damages per certain number of stacks, you get movement speed per number of stacks, and every once in a while you will get some big explosion thingy that happens. You can get animated weapons, you can get corpse detonation, you can get red spears that shoot out, sometimes in a chain that stuns enemies. There's like so many cool benefits. Now it does add a little bit of lag, so be careful. If your computer sucks, you maybe want to like put on I don't know, put on like Tomb Fist or something. Get yourself some Abyssal Jewels, or put on like I don't know what else you would use. You can think of something though, right? Just some life gloves or something. But Rampage is so insane to the point where if you don't have a Headhunter, use a Bisco's Leash. Bisco's Leash is a belt that gives you Rampage. It's so good. And so speedy, so I love that. And the Shadows and Dust, once again, I think the best corruption would be the implicit spells have crit chance, but you can also go with some kind of ally weakness, temp chains, things like this, right? So you can try that out, right? But I would say Shadows and Dust best in slot for the speedy mapping style. Headhunter best in slot for the belt here. Nothing to say here. Hey, it's not Vaal. I'm not gonna ball this. No, I'm not gonna ball this right now. Okay, and then as for the boots, nothing has changed here. I get a little bit of leech here. Why not? Because on a cannot regen map, let's say I kill something, then I leech, boom, and then I can cast it again consistently to get a full stack of Whale Spark, right? Really nice, but not necessary, but a quality of life there. So just get 30% movement speed, shore up your resist, get a little bit of life roll, and you'll be fine there, right? These are I think the best in slot, because you're gonna need some resist. Let me tell you that. Like for sure you're gonna need resist. And then as for the flask, a diamond flask, you're gonna need a warding flask. You're gonna need a if you don't have a corrupting blood gem, like cannot be afflicted, you're gonna need a staunching, and then you're gonna need a heat, right, to stop yourself from being frozen. Now if you're a Pathfinder, oh my gosh, this is another plus for the Pathfinder. You don't need any kind of heat flask, right? And then you put that for staunching and then get a warding, and you're great. Warding is like I think kind of like mandatory these days, unless you are doing a shackles build, but that's nothing to do with this video. So warding flask is kind of mandatory. So I have a diamond flask for crit, a soul catcher, this is the build, quicksilver flask to move faster. This is a Queen of Forest build. I want to move fast, and I want a jade flask to get my, so I'll pop my last two here. Look at this. Oh, let me pop the last two again for you guys. Watch this. So I have wait, what the hell? Yeah, 53. See, you only need 45,000 though, so get that, and you get max move speed. And then that's basically it for this. I mean, there's like not too much stuff you can do here besides the suffixes. So I would say that the base utility flasks are best in slot for this. But if you want to play around with it, I mean, maybe you'll figure out something better than me. So another big thing is like so like if you look at my flasks right here, you get okay. So if I want to, I can press them all at once, or if I want to as well, I can press them like this. I can get all of them individually, and you have to get a mouse like this, okay? If you're playing a mapping build like this, you're not going to want to worry about flask management, especially on a Pathfinder where like it's like infinite. So what you want to do is get a mouse like this that has the side buttons, you see? So if like your thumb is massive, well, my thumb is massive because I have big hands, but like even if you're like a little dainty girl or something, like watch, if you just like watch my last two, right? Those two are that's one combination, right? And then you can even do more. Like let's say like your only covers two buttons, right? So watch the evasion and the evasion and the Stibnite, which are like more ES. Like that was with like one little tiny finger press. So imagine your thumb covering the button. So like you don't need to flash macro anymore. Basically your thumb, right? Here, I'll just show you. Like your thumb will cover every single one of these. You see my thumb on this side panel? Look at that. It's crazy, right? So you can like readjust the little things in there. Get one of these mice. I can't tell you how much headache. Razer Naga. I use a Corsair Scimitar Pro. Even Logitech like 602 or whatever it is. get one of these mice if you're going to play a speedy flask-based mapping build, right? Which is basically every build nowadays. All right, that is one pro tip for you guys. And another thing that you can do on this build is when deciding between Pathfinder and Inquisitor is like you do have to think about what kind of player are you. If you're kind of a casual, you're new to the build, you don't exactly understand the full-blown mechanics of this flask and how you can't like once you hit this flask, you are out of sparks. Watch. I can't cast until this flask is back is done. You see? I can't regain mana. So if you're like really lazy or like really bad at the game, which is like I'm kind of bad at the game too, it's okay to admit that, you might want to go Pathfinder as well. If your goal is to level up faster and to get level 100 faster, Inquisitor. Those are my final thoughts. Overall, which one did I like better? I think I like Pathfinder better. I really think I did, but I also loved how easy it was to get 100 on the Inquisitor, and I love like the big bursty damage. And once again, at the top end, the movement speed is pretty much the same. But if you're going to do this build for the first time, go Pathfinder. And yeah, you're going to love the build. Is there any like other little like things I need to say about the build? Not really. Lightning Jolt actually makes your spark and your will spark cast faster. You get out of the animation faster, so that's really nice. Yeah, that's about it. Once again, I'll post this paste spin for this guy. I should really like undo this, okay? If I'm going to do this, right? If I'm going to make a paste spin, like undo those two. And so I'll post this below the stream if you want to see. Pretty good build. It is really fun. Delving is incredible with it. Abyssal cities, primeval ruins, whale outposts, things like that feel amazing. It's so fun that I took 2 characters on it to 100. So that should be a testament. It's kind of rejuvenated the league for me, and I think it is definitely back. Now, one thing to talk about in comparison to old Whale Spark. So remember old Whale Spark, you would use Sack Harvest and Chill of Corruption. This new one is amazing because you don't need to do that anymore. So you save yourself at least 3 jewels, amazing. And then remember when you had to filter avoidance, because so for those who don't know, Chill of Corruption would give you 50% chance to gain additional whale skill if you like, I think it's if you like shadow the enemy or something. But now, and so you had to reroll the 90% avoidance maps, and sometimes you'd even reroll the 60% avoidance. Now you don't have to. You can do 90% red avoidance. Well, it's called chance to avoid elemental ailments with no problem, because it's simply a soul gain that's not prevented by. You don't have that opportunity cost there. So basically that's another plus on this build. Running around on this build is just it just feels so amazing. Like, I don't think, if you haven't played a Queen of the Forest build, maybe try this one. It's really good. So that's about it. And another good thing about this is you can level a lot of gems. So I'll go over one more thing here. So because they made the change where the whale skill and the regular spark is in one, it saves you a 6 link, right? Or a 4 link in the case of the spark. So now you have this here, and you have so much room for activities. Like if I wanted to, see, I've been leveling Enlightens here, so that's 4. Enlightens here, that's 3. And if I wanted to, I could take out my cast 1 damage and Lightning Jolt. I could do 3 more. So that's 10 Enlightens you can level in here, and then of course 6 in your Hakus, in your Haku weapons. And so you think about this. If Bloodstain is back next league, and you want to go ham, you can level 16 Enlightens at the same time. Just like think about that for a second. 16 Enlightens on one of the fastest map clears. Oh my god, it's going to be nuts, okay? And so if it's back, that might be my strategy next league. Like it's crazy. So yeah, that's one extra thought. Anyways, that's the video. I hope you liked it. If you have more questions, you can ask me on my stream. I'm streaming every day. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Bye.